Remote managed services, get in the ring, get in the game. With me today, I've got two esteemed gentlemen who are clearly leaders in the space, and we're going to talk about getting in the game and remote managed services. Just show of hands, help us get a little bit of lay of the land here. Put my glasses on. How many of you in the room are consistently charging for remote service response support? Maybe 40% of the room, looks like. All right. How many in the room, by show of hands, in the last 3 months have sold 25% of their clientele some sort of a remote service plan? Paid for. How many, keep your hands up, if 50% of your clients? How many of you, 100% of your clients? Okay, nobody's, I think I saw one 100%er over there. So to help you guys get a lay of the land of what you guys are doing. I think clearly from what we're seeing from the hands here, it's not a matter of whether or not you think you should be doing this. In many cases, now we're to the point where, how do I do this effectively? And what can it mean to my business? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So with me today are two, as I mentioned, leading gentlemen in the space. Henry Clifford is president of Livewire and Parasol Remote Monitoring. Thank you, Henry, for being here. And then Joseph Kolchinsky, or Joey, as we all affectionately know him as, founder and CEO of OneVision Resources, is here. Thanks for being here, Joey. Before we jump into it, each of you has kind of a unique perspective as to how you arrived at where you arrived at, and how you got into this space. So, Joey, let me start with you. Tell us the story of OneVision and then how you got to the point of creating OneVision Resources.
I came at this thinking, by the way, good morning, everybody. And thank you, Origin, for, by the way, waking us all up. That could not have been a better beginning. Those two gentlemen do a great job at waking an audience up. I came at this always seeing service as a profit center. That, I think, is the defining concept. For me, it's service was never something that I just did to try to keep up with demand. Service wasn't something that I did to try to go do more projects. In fact, I wasn't an integrator to start. I was just a service provider, managing people's technology, their computers, their mobile devices, their printers, their networks, and eventually their audio, their video, their control, their shades, their lighting, et cetera, et cetera. And the promise I made to myself from the early years was never be a one-man shop. In other words, never let myself not build this into a sustainable and scalable business. And so when I was getting dinged all the time for tech support, whether it was through phone calls or emails or text messages, right away I started trying to figure out how to solve that problem. And in case any of you haven't tried this, if you try to bill your clients for 15 minutes of time on the phone, it's the fastest way to lose a client. So I knew that wasn't going to work. And I started experimenting with recurring revenue on the consumer services side of things 11 years ago. And I figured out that it is possible to deliver a quality service experience that clients are willing to pay a premium for. And I set out to partner with integrators who had the missing piece of the equation, in my opinion. Quality integrators have the local brand in your market that clients already trust. Quality integrators have the resources on the ground. You have the trucks, you have the tools, you have the skills, you have the knowledge. You also have the pipeline. You have amazing relationships that are driving high net worth people into your arms every single day, willing to pay thousands of dollars for lots of technology. And the secret is, when people have lots of technology, they actually tend to have lots of problems. And people are willing to pay a premium when somebody can make those problems go away. So we partner with integrators to look at that opportunity as an opportunity to become a trusted resource in the home, which means be there instantly, all the time, guaranteed, 24/7, not just remotely, but on-site as well. And not just with support, but with priority scheduling and network security and parental controls and all the other services that piggyback on that great relationship. And if you do that right, then you unlock an amazing opportunity to profit from the relationship that you've spent years cultivating and building. And that's what I do.
Henry, you have a similar kind of long and winding road as to how you created Parasol.
So first of all, good morning. Thank you guys for having us up here today. I was thinking about it yesterday because I knew I was going to have to answer this question. And we're here at the CE Pro Summit, and I've been to a few of these now, and the story of Parasol is really a story of frustration. And it was a few years ago at this same event where I got together with my partner Ted and my partner Greg, and we had probably been to one too many table breakout sessions where we realized that we weren't doing a very good job of servicing our customers. And we had tried for years in our own integration business, because I mean, I'm an integrator just like everybody else in this room. And we had tried for years to effectively service our customers. Starting in 2007, 2008, we signed up with IHG, became a dealer, and we started monetizing the product, but we quickly realized that we were selling one thing and delivering a completely different experience, and our customers were really frustrated by it. And so this went on for a few years, a lot of customer friction, a lot of frustration on our part, and finally it just all came to a head a few years ago, and we realized Livewire, Eagle Sentry, and ETC, we realized that the only way we were ever gonna move beyond this sort of DIY mode was to scale it. And so we began by saying, well, let's monitor each other's customers and see how that goes. And we learned a lot by doing that. So our 3 shops just started taking each other's customer support calls, and that was pretty wild. We got better, we learned, made a lot of mistakes, and then we said, okay, let's open it up a little wider. The 3 of us are all members of the same buying group, ProSource, and so we had friends, about 25 close integration friends, who we said, okay, if we screw this up for them, they might yell at us, but we can sort of have them in a close circle and learn a little more. So that's what we did. And we expanded it to that close circle. Got it to the point where we said, okay, let's cast it open. So about a year ago, we sort of threw the floodgates open, and at the end of the day, the product became a way to take a customer and give them a place where 24/7, 365, they can call, text, email, chat, and somebody's on the other end of the line, but not just anybody, an integrator. So we had this from the very beginning, Livewire, ETC, and Eagle Sentry. We said, we're not going to just let some call center take our phone calls. We would have to hire people from our integration businesses to work in this company for us to be happy about letting anybody talk to our customers. And so that's what we did. And so even today, we have this kind of for integrators, by integrators kind of mindset. And so, again, it was just born of frustration. And, I mean, I could give a number of cliches that sort of led to it, but that friction really fueled our journey, and we're excited because today we're growing and really fired up.
All right, let's move on to this kind of elephant in the room question, Henry. Why don't people want to talk about service plans and service agreements?
Yeah, so we hear this a lot, and I'm guilty of the same thing, but I think early on, and it may have had to do with me just being younger and more afraid of losing the sale, but I think there's a lot of fear around us acknowledging that the technology breaks. Like we have to take it upon ourselves that an Apple TV needs rebooting, or a network audio system might need resetting. But everybody knows that technology is frustrating. And so owning that as an integrator, owning that as a sales professional is tough. But we found that once we made that shift, it completely changed the dynamic, and we were able to lean into it a little more. And we're using it as a selling tool. And it's interesting because if the other guy in the market is afraid to, it enables you to become a second mover. Meaning, without saying to your prospect, ask the other guy about their 24/7 program. By talking about yours, it's going to force them to ask the competition about the same thing. And so we will visualize for them. We'll say, okay, well, let's play it out. It's a year from today. You pick up the remote and your system's not working. And they'd say something like, well, what do you mean? I pay all this money. The remote's supposed to work. I'm like, well, you know darn well that it's not going to, so let's play this through. It's after hours. What are your expectations? And then we just shut up. Well, somebody better be available. Great. Was hoping you'd say that. And then we play through the sort of pain, and then we talk about the medication. And for those folks who still don't get it at that point, and they insist in this sort of transactional thinking, I paid all this money, it should just work. We'll then trot out analogies like, okay, well, would you plant a garden and then just never weed it? Or would you just pay a lot of money for landscaping and never mow the lawn? So again, it's that mindset shift. And again, for us, it's a long-term play to really make this shift. But if the other folks in your market are not, and they're thinking more transactionally, and you become more relationship-oriented, it'll increase your attachment of service and support, and you'll win more business because customers pick up on that. So that's what I mean by welcoming the elephant.
So you talked about trying to do it yourself to begin with. Now you're doing it as a third party. How well is a third party? What's the results been from that standpoint in terms of people are satisfied, customers aren't pissed off?
Yeah, Joey and I, we got together and we compared just how customers are feeling about their service and support. And it's interesting, and I almost couldn't believe some of the numbers that we got back. But I mean, the people are very happy. I mean, they're usually always angry when they're calling in about something. A lot of times they just want to be heard in the middle of the night. And it may have nothing to do with any of the technology in the home whatsoever, but they just like being heard. And so for that, as you can see, I mean, we compiled hundreds and hundreds of service interactions, and it's like 5 stars, 4.9 or something. I mean, it's pretty crazy. So to see that level of satisfaction, yeah.
So Joey, let's talk about conversion rates. I kind of tried to do a show of hands here to see what percentage of people were offering their customers. What's kind of the data on that?
Yeah, so when we looked at our conversion rates, there's 2 ways to look at conversion. One is the typical way when you say, how many of my customers, of my sales opportunities, are converting into buying a product, right? That's the typical way when we think about our sales opportunities as one-time transactions, as historically our industry has been all about, a one-time sales transaction to sell a TV or speakers or whatever the system might be. And when you look at it just from that perspective, then yes, the first-time sales opportunity leads to, on average, a 42% initial adoption rate. Or conversion rate to a client saying, yes, I choose to pay for ongoing service and support on a monthly basis. And the next question is, okay, well, what happens when that client makes the choice, the other 58%, and they say, well, I'm not interested in remote support. All I want is for you to just come out to my house. It's like, okay, cool. As Henry said, wait a year, actually, wait 2 weeks, right? They're going to call back. Something is going to happen. It's a whole other opportunity to ask them, would you like now to have remote support? It doesn't mean you have to get all salesy on them, right? But the point is the opportunity and the conversion is, there's this implicit decision that is made every single time. Client calls in and says, my Apple TV is not working. Great, what would you like us to do? Well, I'd like you to just roll a truck. Okay, cool. Then there is no decision to sign up for remote support. But if they say, well, I'd like your help right now, right now being it's Saturday afternoon and you want me to remotely do something with you, great. Would you like to sign up for our remote support service package or membership or whatever it is? And so you actually get that conversion opportunity, that sales opportunity, every single time. And what you start to see is that over time, while in that first month or the first 3 months, it was a 40-something% conversion rate, What it really is 40% today, and then it's 40% of the remaining tomorrow, and then it's 40% of those remaining the next day. And what you do over time is you actually build up a larger and larger base of clients who eventually all realize, oh, yeah, I guess I do need remote support, right? It is worth paying for remote support rather than waiting for someone to come into the home and pay hourly for that.
You've got some really interesting data here, and I wonder how many integrators have actually taken the time to do this in their own service calls. But talking about the engagement of when it occurs typically in a service call environment.
Yeah, so we handle over 10,000 emails and phone calls a month, and have gotten some really good data now on an hourly basis. And so this is a chart of client demand by hour, split between weekday and weekend. So the dark blue shows you Monday to Friday, and you can see that peaks. The beginning of the chart is 9 a.m., by the way, so just morning of a day. And it peaks at around 2 p.m. and then steadily comes off. And you see around dinner time it levels off again, so there's some sustained demand there. But it is pretty persistent all the way up until about 11 o'clock or midnight. And on the weekends, the only difference, that's the light blue, you see it actually flatten out and it's spread out over the day, right? So clients are calling in throughout the entire day. And extends further into the late hours. The really interesting part here is when you look at the pie chart. So Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 only comprises about half of all of the interactions. 50% of all the interactions we engage in are after hours, on weekends, evenings, or overnight. Clients are willing to pay for this, right? And it's really critical that we all start to recognize that the value is there and that there's a lot of value in what we're doing and that clients are starting to appreciate that value as well, right? This isn't just about, I don't have that many phone calls in the evenings. Well, people's cars also don't break down that often, and yet AAA has over 50 million subscribers. It's not about how often your clients are actually calling you in the evenings, whether you believe that that's happening a lot or not. The point is, offer it. Let them tell you, I want that, or I don't want that. And then watch as they start to consume the services. It's real.
Henry, you had some similar data, but with a little variances.
Yeah, we just took, so Joey and I, again, we talked about presenting this, and we just took the Eastern time zone, and it was interesting. Again, you can see spikes during parts of the day where a lot of the times the integration shop is closed. So, and the frustration factor for the customer goes, right here, that sort of 5 to 7 p.m. kind of slot. And then you look at the weekend. I mean, look at the weekend spike there, at about 6 p.m. I mean, and everybody sort of anecdotally in the room can relate to this, I'm sure. This text message, the angry texting. I don't know who gave the clinic on angry text messaging to all the high net worth people out there, but I mean, they're really good at it. And so we said, okay, this is fine. Here's a place to help you support your angry texting habit. And so 6 p.m. on a Saturday, we're open. I mean, both of us are open, happy to field it. They're heard. But in the classic thing, if we are truly in the high touch, premium support business, it just doesn't square. I mean, those of the commercial folks, I get it, right? Because it's 5 p.m., they go home. I get it a little more. But we're at complete odds with one another sometimes with this residential side, right? Because we close, or think we can close. Then you're sitting at dinner with your wife or your husband, and you're getting a text message. Raise your hand right now if you've ever gotten an angry text message at dinner. That's it, right there. And there's the proof in the pudding.
On a weekend. All right, Joey, what are people, you mentioned people will pay for this. What's the data on willingness to pay for services?
Yeah, this chart is an internal favorite at OneVision, and the reason why is partially because I'm not even sure Parks realized that what the real value in the data was, because they didn't quite point it out. We inserted that red line. What this shows is the likelihood of clients to pay for additional support at a certain price point. So that first column shows that at $10 per month, you get about 45% are not likely or neutral to it, and about 55% are likely or very likely. And what you see is as you raise that price to 15 to 20 to 30 a month, the same number of people are likely to pay. What they uncovered is that we haven't yet reached the max of what people are willing to pay. We haven't actually figured out that value. Right? People are actually willing to pay a lot more than we think. I mean, they put out price points from 10 to 30 a month, and there was virtually no difference. What they should have done is show price points of 10 to 50 to 300 to 500. The point is that there's a lot of value in additional services, and we are just scratching the surface on what people are willing to pay for it. So the next chart talks about our conversion rates, not our conversion rates, but our actual value of remote support and value of remote support plus premium services as broken down by different demographics of integrators, right? I broke the buckets down into 60,000 and up if your average job size is 60K and up, or 15 to 60 or less than 15. And the light blue shows what clients are paying those integrators just for remote support. That's it, just for access to 24/7 remote support. And so we push the price points pretty high, as the partners, OneVision partners in the room can attest to. We are always pushing those price points higher and always coaching our partners to go out and talk about, to have the confidence to go and sell these services at higher price points. And so we think we're pushing the envelope on it, and you're seeing a range of $30 to $50 a month for remote support. The really interesting thing, though, is when you start to add additional services on top and actually deliver. Whether it's discounted rates, it's priority scheduling, it's annual tech reviews, proactive monitoring, it's even faster response times, network security, parental controls. You just start to layer additional things on top. And as with most businesses, the margin comes from the add-ons. And that's what you're seeing here, right? So clients are willing to pay, even in the retail world, at less than 15K average job size, right? Those clients are paying $60 a month for those additional services. And priority scheduling and annual tech reviews and proactive monitoring barely costs anything to do those things. And so you look at the 60K and up, and you see some substantial premium there as well. In fact, that's over 2.5x from what's happening at the retail side. Now, one of the things I just want to point out is this isn't about whether you're retail or not retail, luxury or retail, and whether that's better. Retail guys, the retail integrators in the room actually have more of a service potential than the luxury ones. And the reason why is because you have so many customers. I would rather have 10 times the customers paying $30 a month than the ones paying $50 a month, right? And so just keep that in mind. It's not about, if you're thinking about service and profitability in service, it's not about just trying to go after luxury end users. It's actually about finding a way to monetize your service at any end of the spectrum with your clients.
To your point, recall that Best Buy launched last year. Was it Total Tech Support they call it?
Total Tech, yep.
Total Tech Support for $199 a year, so $18 a month approximately, and had 1 million subscribers, I believe it was.
Yep.
1 million people paid for that subscription service, and I'm sure it's growing. We'll see how the renewals go. But all right, Henry, what's the starting point here? How do guys get in the game?
So we get phone calls all the time at Parasol for people saying, hey, I want to sign up, and that's great. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not something that happens overnight. I liken it very much to sort of anybody in the room has ever taken up an exercise program. Some of what we both have to say is probably more like eat your spinach kind of stuff where, again, we've been through it as well. But it didn't just happen overnight, and it required not only the owner, a lot of you in this room are business owners or top folks in your companies. it required more than just that one or two key people in the organization. It required entire organizational buy-in. And especially when it comes to folks who are super high empathy folks in your organization, right? And this is what, a great tech is a super high empathy kind of person. These are folks who want to please the customer. They want to do a really good job, not necessarily as oriented around revenue collection. High empathy, not necessarily as oriented around revenue collection. So for years, we've all been giving away support. And I was talking to somebody yesterday who had just begun the process of moving or pivoting into a 24/7 remote support program where they're monetizing support. And he said to me, all my customers are saying, why should I pay you for the cow when I've been getting the milk for free the whole time? And so there is probably a little bit of a no man's land in your company between where you are today and success, because the early days in it might be a little bit disheartening. You're still gonna have the angry text messages after hours, and you're still gonna have a lot of these things, and you're gonna think back to this session and said, well, Clifford told me all this would be better. And it requires buy-in from the entire organization. And so it's hard, but it's really, really worth it. We did things like shortened our warranty period from, it was a year, we shortened it to 90 days. We offer an extended 2-year warranty. Our service and sales teams talk about it every single engagement. And so we have a page on our site. You guys can go look at it if you want. Livewire, so it's getlivewire.com. And we have a page there where basically it says, hey, here's door number 1, here's door number 2, here's door number 3. Every single project interaction. And we ask the client to pick the door which best fits them. And that results in a high attachment rate. But even the folks who don't end up signing up for 24/7 support, they are still subscribing to a kind of limited support per incident program. So even when they're not subscribing, we're still having them sign up. So it's that muscle memory or that healthy stepping through the door. So they're not going to turn around later, or they might still, but they'll turn around later and say, well, wait a minute, you guys are supposed to be available for free at my beck and call at 3 a.m. at no charge. And then the other piece is from a D&E or design and engineering perspective. Think about how you're building your systems today. Are they being built with the necessary power strips and enabled, ecosystem enabled, whether it's Oversea or Domotes or Backpack, whatever it is? Are you building your systems to be lit up immediately if the customer decides to do that? And if you think about it, that's really not that big of a deal to make that engineering change. But that way, as you decide to, the hardware change is already made. And then the last was, I wrote first pick who, then pick what. Ray Lepper gave that one to me. He had a company called Home Media, was the president of CD at one point. And I've always loved that quote. But look, there's 2 of us up here. OneVision's going to be a fit for some of you guys. Parasol's going to be a fit for others. Maybe some of you guys want to roll your own. But first pick who, then pick what. But again, this year, as you said, Jason, it's not the year where you decide maybe if offering this is a good idea. It's just when are we going to do it?
I think one other quick thing I want to add on to that is making sure that we look at our service ecosystem in the appropriate segments, right? You have new clients, which it's fairly mechanical. I think Henry laid it out pretty well. If you simply offer the options to new clients and make it part of your approach, then clients will make the choice that works for them. There's probably still an emotional and cultural and a bit to it, an art to it. How do you present service in such a way that it's an asset and it doesn't immediately flare up tensions and get the client to think, what do you mean this thing's going to break, right? So there's a way to do it properly. But with new clients, generally speaking, it's a fairly straightforward concept once you internalize service as a product. With existing clients, 95% of your clients, if you go out and appropriately communicate these changes, and you do it professionally, and you do it with the appropriate grace periods, and you give your clients the right information, and you're fair and reasonable about it, 95% of them have absolutely no problem with any of the changes that are going to get rolled out. The 5%, and all of you know who those people are in your heads. You're thinking them. You know the names of those clients. Right? Those 5% are actually what's getting in the way for most integrators to successfully go and make this change emotionally, right? And there's two ways to approach it. One is you can say, look, I'm actually not going to charge you. Thank you very much for all of your help all of these years. Thank you for all the goodwill. Thank you for all the referrals. Thank you for all the business. I just need you to follow this process so that, so that you can get a better experience. I'm not trying to necessarily charge you. Okay, great. So give it to them. The point is don't allow those few clients to sabotage the future of your entire business, right? Do what you need to do to sleep at night, to take care of those clients. But on the other hand, don't assume you have to give everything away for free either. Who in this room built their business based on personal one-on-one engagements with your clients? Right? Okay? Don't forget about that. Go back to your client. Be vulnerable. Don't just make this about process. Get personal with them. Say, look, the reason why you do have to now start paying for the cow is because I can't afford to keep giving this away for free. It is either crushing me personally, or it's crushing my company, or it's crushing my team members. Service today, technology today, your relationship with technology is fundamentally different than it was 10 years ago. And I just happen to be in the position to be the person that can help you all the time. And I can no longer continue to do that at no charge, even if it's what I want to be able to do. Get personal, and I promise you clients will respect that. I have never met a client that has told me to basically just F off if I got personal and intimate with them like that. Doesn't happen. So don't be afraid to go back to your roots.
You just hit on it, and I think it was a good point just to clarify for everybody, and I know I'm guilty of just throwing out the term service agreement. We really need to make a distinction between a terms of service agreement with a customer and one that you're charging for, correct?
Yeah, and Henry was referring to it with walking through the door, right? We call that a terms of service. It's not about signing a contract. It's not about paying a monthly fee. It's not about choosing a membership or anything like that. Forget about all those concepts. It's as straightforward as if you would like me to do service for you in any manner whatsoever, whether it's T&M, it's hourly, it's rolling trucks, it's remote, it's priority, it's discounted rates, whatever it is, I just need you to sign the terms of service.
And it's also, too, not leaving anything unsaid. Like, how many of us at the end of the project will leave things unsaid because we might be nervous that we might lose this big deal? Have any of us ever done that? No? Nobody? All right. I have. And, leaving things unsaid is dangerous because in that gray, empty space, does that get interpreted in our favor later? No.
So, and I think it's not just about tackling head-on the things that are unsaid. It's actually seeing that a lot of these things that we used to fear as an industry and as integrators are actually now an incredible asset. And so, I'd love to, what I'm going to do right now is actually show you how I would if I could be an integrator all over again. And I have offered up to our partners to actually go on a sales call with them and actually go and sell service with them in the field. And if I could do it all over again, here's how I'd present it every single time. Imagine you just did a walkthrough, right? And you just talked about all the systems in the house, and you took all the notes, and you're about to tell the client, okay, give me a day or two, I'll come back to you with a proposal. And imagine if you tweak that approach ever so slightly. Mrs. Smith, before I go here today, I do want to tell you how we here at Acme Integration do service and support. With every single one of our projects, we provide a X warranty, 1-year warranty. In addition to that 1-year warranty, we also provide 90 days of our priority service agreement, our priority membership, as I would call it, whatever you want to call it. In those 90 days, we provide that membership so that you have 24/7 support, priority attention, after-hours availability. And the reason why we do that is because we want to make sure that for the first 90 days after you start using your system, you have a resource because you're going to have questions. It's going to take some time to learn all the new features and capabilities. We also want to make sure that for those first 90 days, while we're still uncovering bugs because we did custom program this and it is going to be built to match your needs, that we're there quickly to address them. And we also want to make sure for those first 90 days, while we're still finishing our punch list, because we won't be done the day you move in, we will need some time to go in and finish the project, that for those 90 days, you have the smoothest experience possible. After that, we'll continue to provide 9 to 5 remote or whatever your baseline is. But for those first 90 days, we want to make sure that you're taken care of to the nines. Let me know what kind of support experience you're looking for after that. Are you interested in 24/7 remote support, or priority attention, or monitoring, or discounted rates, or network security, or parental controls? We have the ability to provide all of that. Let us know. My point with that is, those first 90 days, which are usually the scariest topic of conversation for an integrator, it's the one that we tend to avoid talking about and hope it doesn't go as bad as it could because you hope it's just sort of smooth. But inevitably, as Henry was alluding to, that gray area tends to not work out in our favor. And you hear statements like, man, if I'd known it was going to be like this, I wouldn't have done this. You actually just transform that into an asset. That just sounded really attractive. Yet I just told you that the hundreds of computers I was going to put in your house, yep, you would be confusing. You wouldn't necessarily know how to use it. Yep, they weren't going to work as expected, especially in the first 90 days. And yes, we're going to be in your house frequently for the first 90 days because we're not going to be done with the project. And I made it sound awesome. That, to me, is what this is all about. Can you take service and make it sound really awesome? So that when you guys are getting phone calls, the way you are super excited right now when you get a lead for a whole nother system, more speakers, more TVs, you're super excited. You look at that lead. And when you get a service call, it's usually like, right? How do we get it as an industry so that when we get that service call, we look at it and say, yes, I can now go and make a lot of money by creating an awesome service experience. That's what I wake up every day trying to do. And I think if we as an industry go and capitalize on that opportunity, that is really what's in front of us. Forget about RMR. RMR is just like the byproduct of actually successfully capitalizing on that opportunity in front of us.
I have a bunch of other questions, but I'm sure everybody in the audience has questions. We've got about 5 minutes left. If you want to have a question for Henry or Joey, shoot your hand up there. Back there, John.
Do either of you have programs in place that proactively touch clients every month that aren't using your service? So they're not calling in, they're not texting, but you're proactively reaching out to them to show value in what they're paying for every month?
I could speak to what we do at Livewire. So I just want to recap your question, make sure I heard it properly. I heard you ask, are we touching the folks who are not subscribers at all? And if so, what are we doing? Is that right?
Yes, correct.
So in our CRM, our customer relationship management system, we have trigger points after the job closes. And so we'll hit them at 1 month out, 90 days out, I think 6 months, 1 year. And then we have a 4 or 5 year touch point. But those are really emails that say, like, hey, how's everything going? You know, do you need any help? If you refer us a new client, you know, we'll give you a $100 gift card. And then the 4 to 5 year one is more like, hey, your system is probably in need of a checkup, more like a doctor's visit kind of deal. The rest of the touch points are really more shotgun marketing So I'm not sure I answer your question, but that's what we do.
And Henry, I think specifically you were speaking from an integrator's perspective, saying this is what we do as an integrator in order to reach out. From a Parasol or OneVision perspective, and I'll speak for myself as OneVision, I don't think actually you should be looking for a third party to go and try to proactively, or even yourselves, to try to proactively necessarily reach out to clients who thinking about doing it on a monthly basis to try to prevent inbound inquiries. I think we have to actually separate that. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned about the last decade, and from when IHG started doing remote monitoring and trying to prevent truck rolls. I think we actually all need to, again, get to a place where we embrace truck rolls. You will never eliminate the client's need for tech support, ever, ever. You know what? If it were possible, businesses would have figured out how to grow their companies without IT departments. It's just not possible. So reaching out is a wonderful thing, and we should do it, right? At OneVision, yes, there is a service component of sending out emails and making sure that clients know that the service exists, right? But it's ultimately being prepared for when clients reach out to you and making sure that we can be responsive as much as possible.
Really what I was asking is, how do you show value to the customers that aren't using that service on a month-to-month basis?
If they're paying, you mean?
If they're paying,
Got it.
I canceled Hulu this month because
Yep.
I realized I haven't watched Hulu.
Oh,
this month.
I misunderstood your question.
Yeah.
We have what we call the home health report card. It's so cool. And every single month you get this email that sort of just talks about at a high level, hey, we've been monitoring your system. Here are the things that we encountered. We fought 50 Russians away in the People's Liberation Army, and we took care of all that, and we put a value to it. This is how many hours you've saved. So that home health report card was a direct result of us wanting to, in our own integration businesses, show value on a monthly basis. And so we've said, you know what, we need something that's very simple, easy to understand, that's going to really make them think twice about picking up the phone and canceling the service, out of sight, out of mind. So sorry, I misunderstood your question.
And the data around that as well, so churn rates, which I think is an important data point that we didn't actually end up putting up on screen, but churn is 0.5% per month, or about 5% a year. So we actually think it's a non-issue for now anyway. It's like AAA. My car hasn't broken down in almost a decade. I'm still a loyal subscriber because I understand the value of AAA. And I think if your clients understand the value of the peace of mind that you bring by providing 24/7 support, they actually are hoping they never use you, meanwhile know that they still need you.